The lights of the America's Got Talent stage gleamed brighter than ever that night. The crowd buzzed with excitement, unaware that what they were about to witness would touch the deepest corners of their hearts. The stage that had seen countless performances over the years was about to be graced by something the world had never seen before. As the announcer's voice echoed through the theater, a hush fell over the crowd. Two small figures slowly made their way onto the stage. At first, people couldn't quite understand what they were seeing. Then, gasps spread across the audience. They were conjoined twins, two young Filipino girls, around 14 years old, walking together, moving as one. Their faces were full of nervousness, but their eyes shone with determination. Simon Cowell, usually the toughest critic on the panel, sat up straight. His eyes softened. Beside him, Sofia Vergara and Heidi Klum exchanged emotional glances, while Howie Mandel leaned forward with curiosity. No one had ever seen something like this before on AGT. The host smiled gently and said, "Hello girls. What are your names?" One of them spoke shyly, "I'm Lianne." The other continued softly, "And I'm Lia." The audience clapped, sensing their courage. The host smiled warmly, "And where are you from?" The girls smiled proudly and said in unison, "We're from the Philippines." A wave of applause filled the theater. Filipinos all around the world watching the show that night felt a surge of pride. Simon leaned closer to his mic and asked gently, "How old are you both?" Lianne smiled faintly, "We're 14. And what made you decide to audition for America's Got Talent?" Simon asked with his usual directness. Lia took a breath before answering, "We've always loved singing. It's our way to forget how people see us, to feel normal, to feel free." A silence swept through the room. Even the judges didn't speak for a moment. Simon looked at them, his voice unusually soft. "That's very beautiful. Thank you for being here. We're honored. What are you going to sing for us today?" The girls looked at each other and smiled. "We're going to sing, 'You Raise Me Up.'" The audience gasped softly again. It was a big song, one that required not just skill, but deep emotion. Simon nodded. "Good luck. The stage is yours." The lights dimmed. The first notes of the piano began to play. And then, as the spotlight hit the girls, their voices rose together. At first, the sound was delicate, fragile, like a whisper carried on the wind. But as the song built, so did their confidence. Their voices blended perfectly, as though two souls were singing through one heart. Lianne's voice carried a clear, bright tone, while Lia's had a gentle, lower harmony. Together, they created something so pure that the entire room seemed frozen in time. Simon blinked, visibly moved. Sophia placed a hand over her heart. Heidi's eyes began to glisten. Even Howie's usual jokes were gone. He just stared, mouth slightly open, lost in the moment. As the chorus hit, "You Raise Me Up, So I Can Stand on Mountains," the audience began to rise to their feet one by one. Their voices filled the theater with such strength, such emotion, that some people in the front row could be seen wiping their tears. Lianne and Lia weren't just singing, they were telling the story of their lives. Two girls, born joined together, who had faced endless hospital visits, stares, and whispers from strangers. They had spent their entire lives being told what they couldn't do. And now, here they were, standing before millions, doing what no one believed was possible. The song reached its final note. Their voices soared in perfect harmony, and when it ended, there was silence. For a moment, the crowd was too stunned to react. Then, the entire audience erupted in applause, cheers, and tears. People stood, clapping and shouting. Simon Cowell stood up. He rarely stood up, but now, he couldn't help himself. He clapped slowly, his face full of emotion, his eyes red. The other judges stood too, applauding the courage and grace of the two girls before them. The girls smiled through tears, bowing gently as the applause continued. Simon leaned toward his mic, his voice trembling slightly. "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard on this stage." The audience cheered louder. He continued, "You two have something truly special. It wasn't just your voices, it was your spirit, your bond, your bravery. You've reminded all of us tonight that music has no limits, and neither does love." The girls covered their mouths, already crying. Lia whispered, "Thank you." Simon looked at the other judges. "I don't think there's anything more to say." He reached forward, his hand hovering over the golden buzzer. The crowd sensed it and began chanting, "Golden buzzer. Golden buzzer." Lianne and Lia stared in disbelief. Simon smiled softly and said, "For the strength you've shown, for the love you share, and for the inspiration you've given all of us tonight, he pressed the golden buzzer. The theater exploded with golden confetti. The twins looked up, crying uncontrollably, as the glitter rained down on them. The host ran to the stage, hugging them gently, while the judges wiped their tears. Simon walked up to the stage, something he didn't usually do. He approached the girls and said softly, "You just changed the world tonight. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey." The crowd continued cheering, chanting their names. It was a moment no one would ever forget. After their performance, a backstage interview revealed even more of their story. Lianne and Lia were born in a small province in the Philippines. Doctors had told their parents they wouldn't survive more than a few days. But they did. Growing up, life wasn't easy. They couldn't go to regular school because of their condition. They were often bullied and stared at. Yet, they never lost their love for music. Their father was a tricycle driver who worked day and night to support them. Their mother sold homemade food on the street. Despite their struggles, every evening, their small home would fill with song. That was their escape from pain. Singing made them forget that they were different. It made them feel alive. When they saw AGT on TV for the first time, they dreamed of being on that stage. It seemed impossible, but their parents encouraged them. "Don't let anyone tell you you can't," their mother would say. "You were born to do something beautiful." So they practiced every day, recording videos on an old phone. One of those videos went viral on social media, and eventually, it reached the AGT producers. They received a message inviting them to audition. That's how they found themselves on the biggest stage in the world, where they turned their pain into power. Back on the AGT stage, the golden buzzer meant they were headed straight to the live shows. When the live rounds came, expectations were sky high. Everyone wanted to see what the Conjoined Filipino twins would do next. That night, the lights dimmed once again. The girls appeared on stage wearing elegant white dresses. The crowd cheered as Simon smiled at them with encouragement. He said softly, "We've been waiting for this moment. Show us what you've got." This time, they chose to sing the prayer. The moment the first note left their lips, the audience was captivated again. Their harmony was flawless, their emotion pure. They weren't just performing, they were praying through their voices. Halfway through the song, the camera panned to Simon. His eyes were wet again. By the end, everyone was on their feet. Even the toughest fans couldn't hold back tears. When they finished, Simon spoke first. "You've taken us to heaven and back with your voices. What you're doing here is more than music, it's a miracle." The girls smiled through tears. Lia whispered, "Thank you, Sir Simon. We're just so happy to be here." Sophia added, "You make us believe in magic. You make us believe in hope." Howie said, "You don't just sing. You inspire. You represent everyone who's ever felt different. You show that beauty isn't about perfection, it's about courage." The girls moved to the semifinals, where they sang, "A Million Dreams." The crowd roared again. They dedicated that performance to their parents watching back home in the Philippines. "We want them to know," Lianne said before singing, "that their dreams are our dreams too." The performance was breathtaking. When they sang the line, "Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head, golden lights fill the stage, symbolizing hope and dreams." Simon said after the performance, "If this world had more people like you too, it would be a kinder place. You make everyone watching want to be better." As the finale approached, the entire world was talking about the Conjoined Filipino twins. News outlets called them the angels of AGT. Their videos were viewed hundreds of millions of times across social media. They became a global symbol of unity, strength, and love. On the night of the finale, tension filled the air. It was the biggest night of their lives. The twins walked out slowly, holding hands. They chose to sing, "Never Enough." The audience knew it was going to be emotional, but no one was prepared for what happened next. Their voices rose, perfectly synchronized, full of power and emotion. Every word, every note, carried the story of their journey. The struggles, the pain, the love they shared, and the courage that brought them here, it all came pouring out through that one song. By the final note, the entire theater was in tears. Simon stood up, clapping hard, his face showing deep emotion. He turned to the crowd and shouted, "That's what this show is about." As the audience roared, golden confetti filled the air once again. The girls hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. In the final results, even though they didn't win the top prize, the world knew who the true winners were. Simon said during the finale, "Winning isn't everything. What you've done here, the hearts you've touched, the lives you've changed, that's what matters. After the show, offers came from around the world. Record labels, charities, and talk shows reached out. But when asked what they wanted most, Lia smiled and said, "We just want to sing. That's all." Simon later revealed in an interview, "I'll never forget those two girls. They reminded me what real talent is. Not just the voice, but the heart behind it." Back in the Philippines, their hometown celebrated. Their parents watched every episode with tears of joy. Neighbors gathered around small televisions, cheering for their girls. Their mother said in an interview, "We used to worry they would never live a normal life. But now, they've shown the world that being different can be beautiful." Months later, they were invited back to perform on AGT, All-Stars. This time, they sang, "Heal the World." Their performance carried a message of unity, peace, and love. As they sang the words, "Make it a better place," the crowd joined in, waving lights and singing along. Afterwards, Simon said, "You started as an inspiration, and now you've become a movement." Their story spread beyond AGT. They were invited to perform at international events, schools, and hospitals. Children born with disabilities looked up to them as heroes. They became advocates for acceptance and kindness, reminding everyone that beauty isn't defined by appearance, it's defined by the soul. In an emotional interview, the twins said, "When people used to stare at us, we felt broken. Now, when they look at us, we hope they see love." Simon later said, "They changed how I see the world. They taught me that music isn't about competition, it's about connection." Years later, the twins released their own album called Two Hearts, One Voice. Every song was filled with hope and love. The album became a global success, inspiring millions. When asked what they wanted to say to the people who doubted them, Lianne smiled gently and said, "We forgive them. Because their doubts gave us the reason to sing louder." Their father, now proudly standing beside them at concerts, said, "I used to think God made a mistake. Now I know He gave us a miracle." Simon Cowell, at a charity event, said, "I've seen thousands of performances in my life. But there are a few moments that stay with you forever, theirs is one of them." And so, from a small village in the Philippines to the grand stage of AGT, two conjoined twin girls taught the world the true meaning of courage, love, and unity. They didn't just win the hearts of millions, they healed them. Because sometimes, it takes two voices, joined by fate, to remind us all, that even in a world full of differences, harmony is still possible. And that night, on the AGT stage, as the golden confetti fell, the world realized something extraordinary: these girls were not just singers. They were a miracle made of music. Their legacy lived on, not through trophies or fame, but through the countless hearts they touched. Their story became a symbol of hope, reminding generations to come that love always finds a way, even when the world says it's impossible.